When it comes to recruiting, UCF is so smooth with it for 2027.
Was Scott Frost Debonaire with Debonaire Johnson?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Turn us on, turn us up. We'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, James Duncan, UCF sports commentator extraordinaire, co-show host here at Locked On UCF to talk a little UCF football. On today's show, we're catching up on recruiting, but managing the roster turnover. So important. Scott Frost had some comments at Media Days that we want to talk about.
Yes, and then we're going to do a little bit of a temp check on the entire class for 2027. And, you know, we've been talking about this class a lot, but I don't think Scott Frost is getting enough credit for what he's doing out there.
Yeah, I don't either. One of those kids that we're going to talk about, Debonaire Johnson, has joined the class. We've been trying to keep up. Recruiting is fast-paced, so we want to make sure we don't skip over anybody in this class. So we'll start the show there. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your likes and subscribes help us continue to climb that YouTube algorithm chart thingamajigger, so that we are the number one UCF podcast out there. We want to stay up there. Let's start with Debonaire. He has joined this class. Debonaire Johnson has joined this class at linebacker, a little on the heavy side for a linebacker, 230 pounds, 5'11", composite 84.87 ranking. He hails from Hollywood, Florida, joining the Knights here. We talk a lot about this class and how it has a strong Florida flavor to it. Talk to me about Debonaire Johnson and what he brings to the UCF Knights next year, besides just being smooth, as his name suggests.
You know, linebacker is a position that UCF, I think, has struggled to find two good guys at every year. There's always been one that's kind of stood out. Last year, obviously, Lewis Carter. And years prior, it was Jason Johnson or Tatum Bethune, who transferred to Florida State and then is now in the NFL. Linebacker has been a position that has been relatively inconsistent for UCF. I think you've always had talent. The flashes of talent have been there, and you've had talent come through and talent leave. But you have to have a deep room at linebacker for you to guarantee yourself success at that position. Debonaire Johnson is the second linebacker in this class. We covered Tavion Swint, who's a lineman, but we also covered Ian McDuffie, who is the other linebacker in this class. That was a very important pickup, and having two linebackers in a class should be what I would consider your minimum amount of linebackers to have in a class. I think they might end up just being the only two linebackers this class. But Debonaire Johnson, a little, like you said, a little on the heavier side, is going to be that run stuffer, that run stopper, that QB spy kind of guy for you, who's going to be really downhill. I watched a little bit of his tape, and you can tell his closing speed and his pursuit is something that is a strength of his. Now, granted, I want to say, like, the passing lane IQ is there, but for a guy at 230 pounds at 5'11", he's going to be a stopper, Mike.
Yeah, look, get into run lanes, stop the run, get after the quarterback, being fast enough and agile enough to be able to maybe even drop back in coverage, play a little zone. These are all things that linebackers need to be able to do at this level. And we're big Alex Grinch fans. I can't stress the great job that he and his staff did on defense last year. When you go back and you look by the numbers, with a little bit more offensive production and with the offense winning time of possession, maybe a little bit more, you could see this defense rise to even higher heights in 2027 and beyond. And look, kids need proof of concept. These kids need proof of concept. There's a kid in a certain tier that it seems like they're recruiting right now where it feels a little bit like they've hit their cap. if that makes sense. And that's not me saying that these kids aren't good, because I think development will decide what their ultimate ceiling is. But there is kind of a shortened timetable, and we're going to talk about that in the third part of the show when we talk about Scott Frost's comments here. But there's a little bit of a shortened timetable when it comes to expectations, and that expectation has been passed along to the recruits. You need to develop faster because we need you to be better faster, because we're expected as a team to be better faster.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you go out and get a guy like Debonaire Johnson. This guy had SEC offers. He was offered by Auburn, Ole Miss, Kentucky, some Big 12 in there, West Virginia. Also had ACC, offers. Pitt Panthers. We'll be meeting them soon. Minnesota Golden Gophers. We had Liberty giving him an offer. We had the Cows down the road giving him an offer. USF. Bowling Green, Toledo. I mean, this guy had offers. He's taken visits to a lot of those places as well, but decides to stay home with UCF. I think that's an important thing to look at, because you can sit there and you can look at stars. You can sit there and you can look at, the guy's composite ranking or his height and weight. And you can only see those things are what is on statistically, that you can describe Debonaire Johnson. But unless you actually are seeing what these coaches are seeing, you might question why a guy like that is taking a visit to Auburn or taking a visit to Kentucky or being offered by Ole Miss and those kinds of things. There's obviously something about this kid that people like. And the fact that Scott Frost was able to get him and keep him home in Florida, the guy's from Hollywood, Florida. It's not terribly far from UCF. It says something about Scott Frost's debonair style of recruiting, being able to get Debonaire Johnson in this 2027 class, Mike.
Yeah, we've got to move on, but I do want to say this. That Auburn offer matters, and here's why it matters. They may have the best linebacker room in the SEC this coming year, and it is headlined by a guy nobody had on their radar heading into last season. His name is Xavier Atkins. Look, he is going to be a Butkus finalist, and they have an eye. They've got an eye for that there. So they offered him. That matters to me because I know what DJ Durkin is building there. And I don't tend to judge much based on what, who offered who, but like what school offered, but the evaluator is what matters.
Yeah.
And, they had one, they were so much like UCF last year in that they had a really good defense and troubles on offense. And stars arose on that defense. So if they wanted him, if they saw that thing in him, that tells me that he's got that thing, because I know what they're doing there. So this is going to be fun, man. I have a supreme faith in this staff and their ability to be able to recruit and identify and develop. And it seems like it's only getting better. Let's get to our first break, and when we come back, we're going to take an overall recruiting temperature check. Are we happy with recruiting at this point? Do you guys think it should be better? Do we think it should be better? We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Support for today's episode comes from Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits, you need the right hire. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute that we've been talking, companies just like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Guys, usually the biggest difference between a company having success and finding success is not just having warm bodies. It's about having a team of people who are working toward the same goal. Indeed helps you find, and Indeed sponsor jobs helps you find people that can do just that. So you spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. I'm talking less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support us by saying you heard about Indeed right here on Locked On UCF. Again, that's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. James, how we feel about recruiting? How we feel about recruiting so far? Right now, UCF, I mentioned, it feels like there's a cap on what they can do right now until we see a little more proof of concept, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They were so far behind, man. The passing game just, it sucked. The passing game sucked. However, they've got 14 commits in this class. I would like to see 20 high school commits. 6 more between now and signing day, early signing day might be a tall task. But what do you see from this class here, man? Like, you feel good about recruiting at this point?
Yeah, I feel all right. I don't think anyone's going to look at this class and say like that's an absolutely stellar class. Right now, as of July 12th, when we're recording this, UCF has 14 commitments. 5 of those are on offense. I believe 5 of those are on offense. 8 of those are on defense, and 1 of those is a special teams punter. Not really all that great. I mean, you want a little bit more offense. I feel like that's where you've typically struggled. This might make you look at the class and say, hey, maybe these guys are just stopgaps to fill and develop what Scott may potentially go after in the transfer portal. I think if the class ends the way that it is right now, then I think you'll be a little bit disappointed as a UCF fan. I think it's a little mediocre. Not saying that these guys can't do anything great, but just that you're not necessarily providing any excitement externally outside of what you are seeing from the potential of these guys. Last year, UCF had the 14th ranked Big 12 class. This year, they are still sitting at number 14 in the Big 12. I think as someone that, believes in the program, I think that's not really acceptable. You are in a hotbed of recruiting. You are not in the middle of nowhere, Arizona or Iowa or, wherever other random Big 12 programs may be. You are in one of the most exciting places to live, and you are in a recruiting hotbed for football. There's no reason that you should be 14th in the conference. Now, you have managed to get 79% of your recruits in state, which makes me believe in your ability to recruit your own recruiting grounds. But you only have 14 commitments, puts you at 66 nationally. It's not really anything to brag about as a Power 5 program. I think, if I'm honest, I'd like to see at least 4 more commits in this class. I think they will probably come during the season. And my hope is that, and I'm also saying, and I want to put this out there, that the 14 people that have committed, you might see 2 or 3 of those guys drop and change schools. And I'm not saying that because I want them to. I'm just saying that is how the game is played. But I do believe in this year's squad's ability to go out and get wins. And I believe that will show proof of concept. Therefore, I think UCF is going to get 2 or 3, maybe even 4 flips. I think they're going to get some late commitments. I think they're going to get some decommitments from guys that maybe the program has backed off of since they've started winning. I think that is what would be best for the program is if you start putting wins out there, recruits start getting interested, and then you're able to capitalize on what you're putting out on the field.
Yeah, look, I like that you feel this is not where this is. You can make the most of this, but this is not where it should be. Now, does it bother you a little bit that there's not a consensus 4-star in this class at all this cycle?
Extremely. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong. People that watch our show consistently can go check, and they'll let me know pretty fast if I'm wrong about this. But I do believe that every single class in the past, I want to call it 6, maybe 7 years, has had a 4-star in it. Sometimes multiple. I know that last year, we had Rocco, we had Alassane Idrisu, and years prior, I mean, that was the class that Braeden was in. I do believe that Braeden was a consensus 4-star. And pretty much all of Gus's classes had 4 stars. So it is a little disappointing for you to not have one before the season starts. But let's just remember that, like, Rocco was a late add. Rocco was a late flip. We had Kane for most of that recruiting process.
Mm-hmm.
Get to, I think, maybe the space game it was, and Rocco was there on a visit. I think he may have committed a little earlier than that. Maybe not.
Yeah, Tyron Horns was a 4-star.
Tyron Horns was a 4-star last year. So, I mean, you had multiple 4 stars in last year's class. You don't have one yet in this year's class. Yeah, I guess it does make me a little worried, Mike.
Yeah, it's not everything. Stars aren't everything, but I told you how I feel about Tyron Horns. I got him on my list of dudes that might dude out pretty hard. And I'm looking at this class. I'm like, who's the dude? Who's the dude in this class? I'm not sure if I know yet.
I mean, just based off tape, I want to give like shouts to Cornelius Purdy. Like that dude is so raw. Like he is so raw. And then Ian McDuffie has been on the defensive side is someone that makes me pretty excited at linebacker. But overall, I think you can go out and you can go get some, somebody to really hammer this class home during the season. I'm not terribly worried.
Yeah, look, the roster management obviously is going to be top of mind, not only this season, but in seasons to come. Scott Frost had some comments at Media Days about roster management expectations. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On UCF. More from Media Days. Scott Frost took the podium, and he talked about building chemistry being harder than ever. But he also said that roster turnover forces coaches to intentionally accelerate team building. I find this comment interesting. He went on to say UCF has increased competitions and cross-position activities to build relationships quickly. This is an interesting take on the accelerated process in college football right now that has been kind of thrown in there by the portal and by NIL. There's just an expectation with all the investment that you need to be good faster, but you can't cheat the process in terms of like team building and building relationships and team chemistry. Some of this stuff takes time. So while I agree that there is an expectation that some of this stuff will happen faster, I think it is still on us, the fans, to have patience with that process, because there are just some things that just cannot be rushed, man. Right? Like, I don't know. I think getting to know somebody, if you've ever been in a relationship, there's some girls you just know from day one. She's the one. And even though you can know she's the one, getting to know her still takes time. Right? Relationships are like the same in that way. And so if you're building a team and team chemistry, it takes time. You can do things to help accelerate that some by doing team building activities, and things that help these guys connect. One things coaches like to do is they bunk certain players together, so they might put their center with their quarterback, or hey, you guys need to be like this if you're going to be of one mind on the football field. But are our expectations too unreasonable in terms of what it takes, right? And then retention. He talked about the turnover. Man, look, turnover is going to happen. Attrition is going to happen. But there are going to be cycles where you keep a lot of the guys. And so we may not see bigger classes when there's a ton of retention, because there's not as much to replace. We're now doing 5 for 5. It feels like there might be fewer scholarships in some cycles to hand out. College football has turned into a whole business if it wasn't already one. But I think there are some things that cannot be rushed. Some things have to be slow cooked.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I think, unfortunately, and I think the main reason for Scott's comments here are that the new way of college football, the new age of college football, we keep saying it's new. It's it is the way now, but it is like it's putting it in the air fryer. You're not letting it cook in the oven for a couple hours. You're putting it in the air fryer for 30 minutes, and you're putting that out on the field every year. And there will always be schools that are going to be able to let something slow roast, like the Auburns and Georgias and Alabamas and those types of teams that just have so much history and so much resource for their university that they are able to bring a guy in from freshman to senior year, and that guy's just going to be happy to be at that university. UCF is not really in that kind of situation where, if that happens, it's a one-off. It's a Malachi Lawrence. It's an RJ Harvey who transferred in after his freshman year at Virginia and stayed with the program through injury, through highs and lows. It is definitely difficult to have to manage expectations when you are not that kind of university and you don't have that pull for guys to just stay year after year. But I want to give a huge compliment to Alex Grinch and Scott Frost, because they were able to retain. And, when we talk about roster turnover in this new age of college football, it is going to be difficult to retain your top guys year after year. And they have done it. They retained Jaden Bellamy. They retained Horace Lockett. They retained Braeden Marshall. They retained Damari Henderson. They retained RJ Jackson, Sincere Edwards, Isaiah Nixon, Lewis Carter. They went out and retained probably, I would say, every single guy on that roster that they wanted to keep, with the exception of maybe John Walker. Like John Walker, I think honestly people have forgotten that he has left for Ohio State, because they went out and brought guys in and they went out and got good freshmen. That is what a good DC, that is what a good head coach does, is they make you forget about the one loss that you had. And Philip Dunham, I think is trying to play at the next level right now. He's probably the only major loss that you had out of that group as well. Now you dive into the offense and you talk about managing roster turnover. Well, you got a new quarterback. You got 4 new quarterbacks. You got new running backs. You don't have Miles. You don't have Jaden. Now you have Duke and you have Landon, but you also have Tavion. And as much as you've talked about Tyron Horns, I think Tavion's got the shot this year. Now, we've talked about how highly Scott Frost has spoken of Duke Watson, but that same thing goes for Tavion.
He talked about Tavion too.
He talked about Tavion, and one thing that I really noticed in spring camp, and I attended almost all of the spring camp practices, Tavion Swint is electric. And I think him and Duke actually play very similarly. I think you could see Tavion really make the most of his carries this year. I'm looking at anywhere between 6.3 to 7.2 yards per carry type of impact Tavion Swint. I would look for him to try and make an impact early. Then you look at tight ends. you feel good about the tight ends you have. They did a very good job in retaining their their all-star tight end, Dylan Wade, but also retaining their young up-and-coming freshman star, Caden Peening. And then now your wide receiver room. You feel good about the guys.
Baby.
You feel good about the guys you brought back. I mean, you want to talk about returning talent, Dwayne Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
And Wade and Charles. Don't forget about Wade and Charles. Your true freshman last year.
I love
you brought back.
Love the receivers they were able to return. We got to get out of here, but I do want. You make a great point about the returning talent and their ability to be able to get their top guys to stick with it for another year and believe, and especially at receiver, because a lot of that is when they went out and got Alonza Barnett. I know those guys had to been like, yes, finally. Yeah. I'm gonna stick around. I'm gonna stick around to play with this dude.
Seriously,
right? Yeah, I'm gonna stick around and play with this guy. Yeah, who's throwing them the ball definitely matters after the season of what they endured. So those guys would never talk bad about Tavion and Cam, but they didn't do a very good job getting them the ball consistently, and that was the glaring hole in the offense. So, look, we're going to go on and
the quarterbacks really struggled to get the wide receivers the ball last year.
Sad, man.
But
it was sad.
Locked On UCF is not struggling to get you content right now in the bear of what is an off season, guys.
God.
We are almost at 1.5K. We have seen you guys tapping in and commenting every single episode. We appreciate you guys in this off season so much. So please, guys, like I'm on vacation. We're getting you guys content. Like, it doesn't matter. Mike looks like he's on vacation with his shirt.
I'm getting I'm in my Billy Butcher era right now. You watch
guys, we are pumping out content for you guys. We appreciate how much you guys have been tapping into the show. So please like, subscribe, comment all your comments below. Let us know what you guys think about recruiting right now, and let us know, what you guys think about roster turnover and the guys you are excited to see, offense and defense. I want to hear all of it.
Yeah, we're not done for the day. We'll be back at you guys later today with even more UCF content, as James mentioned. Guys, thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every single day. We'll see you guys later today right here on Locked On UCF.